Welcome back, everyone, to the StarLadder I-League Star Series. We're onwards to the fourth best of five of the day. As usual, Conquest best of five, four classes, one Ben. Typical format for these types of tournaments. With me on the casting, I guess he's on his chair at this point. James Kostasich, Firebat. We just saw Dr. Hippie get completely destroyed by BM. That was entertaining. I mean, I don't know about entertaining from Dr. Hippie's perspective, but
he was laughing.
It's been a while.
He was having a good time.
Yeah, he was kind of expecting it to happen regardless. Clearly, Sixto maximized his energy expenditure, did not want to drag the cursor around the screen for no reason, just kept it to a minimum, and ended up taking it in a very flashy 3-1. So 2 sweeps and a 3-1 in the tournament so far for the day. Next up, we have Neirea versus Orange. Neirea that we haven't, we don't see too much of him around the competitive scene. He's the type of player that a lot of people know the name of if they've been around for a while, but he doesn't show up in every single event. What's he been up to these days?
Well, he just recently competed in the Winter Championship in the Bahamas, wasn't he there? So he's been making his way in places. He's definitely a very solid tournament level player. When I was looking at the groups, I kind of predicted him to come out on top of the group that he was in. He's not the flashiest of players. He doesn't stream as much, I'd say, as some of the big streamer players. He's kind of like mid-tier as far as the streaming is concerned and doesn't fly out to every event. So he's not at every DreamHack. But every tournament I've seen Neirea in, he's done well in. So I expect nothing less from him here.
Yeah, we had a top 8, I think, in WESG, and as you said, the Winter Championship just this year. So definitely a strong player. He is the man, the meme, the legend, the guy who made OTK Worgen work for the longest time. I think he was the only proponent of it, and I'm still hoping to this day that something like that happens again. But it seems like the metagame for tournaments is getting refined so much so that we tend to see repeats of specific classes and strategies being brought. Now, Nerea's Paladin is being banned by Orange. What do you make of this ban from Orange?
Well, Orange doesn't want to deal with the mid-range Paladin. Orange is the one playing the all-aggressive decks, which a lot of the times I would say mid-range Paladin isn't the best against a lot of the aggressive decks, but Orange is saying, you know what, it's better than what the other stuff Neirea has. Neirea has Jade Druid, Sai Gunther Mage, and I think he's playing Quest Rogue, but it may be a Miracle Rogue. I don't think we actually saw his Rogue. I think it was banned in the game. I casted him earlier. So that's still a mystery to us and probably Orange as well. He's hoping it's the Quest Rogue because that seems to be what he's targeting with his lineup.
Yeah, and Neirea with the Jade Druid, that's an interesting thing, right? Like, we've seen so many people bring aggro Druid that at this point I'm always expecting it to come out, but there's been also this school of thought that prefers to bring the tried and true Jade Druid, which is slightly worse against aggro, actually much worse against aggro, since you just can't take the early blowouts unless you get, a turn 1 Fandral. But it's one of those things where you can't be as proactive with Jade.
Right. It struggles a little bit more than aggro Druid would against aggro, but is a free win against any of the control decks. So you see it pop up in a lot of Conquest lineups just because of how well-rounded the deck is. And I'd say in the last tournament, EURCN, it was the second most popular deck in the entire tournament, brought by all, I think it was like 15 out of the 16 players brought it in group stages. It's a very powerful deck that's very difficult to target just because of how powerful the Jade mechanic is and how powerful the healing potential of the deck is.
I was going to say that turn 1 Fandral probably just completely shut down Orange, but then he picks out the Grimscale Chum buffing the Rockpool Hunter number 2, and suddenly he's still ahead on board. I mean, I'm actually struggling to believe that, but it looks like Murloc Paladin with what's left in the deck could have some follow-up with that double J turn. Goodness gracious.
Double Jade into either Aya or Innervate Primordial Drake if it lands should basically seal out the game in Neirea's favor. It's really tough to be able to push through all of that. What Orange is going to need is a Sunkeeper Tarim. That'll be able to change things around. Just be able to debuff his opponent's minions while buffing his own, but barring that, this is going to be tough. He could use Consecrate here to push damage if he wanted to push, but maybe better just to start squeezing in hero powers to try and set up for that Sunkeeper.
I don't mind the Consecration. I think it's one of the best you're going to get this game. So for that reason, it's not the worst idea, because you can play the Vilefin on the back of it, and again, still have enough stuff left over to make Sunkeeper viable. And you're also forcing the Druid to find a way to ping your minions, if they're left a little bit lower on health later on. So I don't mind this line of play. It's very safe, and it's forcing Neirea to have specific cards to answer this.
Oh, yeah, you see Orange just kind of shaking his head there as Aya comes out. really ramping the Jades, putting a lot of pressure. He's got to close out this game quick. Megasaur, Hearthstone might be able to allow him to do it.
Yeah, +3 attack is sick. Wind Fury is okay. I mean, I'll take whatever. Just hit me up with those high stat swings is what you're looking for. +3 health. Okay, fair enough. We stick around, I guess.
It's not great, but it's something.
I mean, it could have been another one-drop Murloc. Instead, it was the Megasaur. So
right.
You put it into perspective, it's not as bad as it could have been. Jade Spirit here with the Jade Idol can generate the biggest possible board. There's really not much merit to Primordial Drake, I don't think, since you're really just not finishing off a single thing. You need to soften up the board before you commit to that. And you're going to need the Jades on the board to do that.
Kills off a Murloc, wants to try to play around War Leader the best he can.
Well, he's pretty much dead to any, like, War Leader anyway, right? He's just dead
War
to
Leader
2 more
does
damage.
6, so it kills him, yeah. Spike Ridge Steed to set up True Silver for lethal seems pretty solid. You put it on your lowest attack minion with the most health, so they have to trade into it the maximum amount of times. And then you jam everything to the face, try and kill him with True Silver. I don't know why the 1/4. Doesn't make the trades in awkward. You can trade in 2 5s, so that's not a big deal. You want to put it on something where he's got to trade in uneven, if possible. I guess they can't really make it that...
Yeah, on this board, I think it's going to be pretty hard, but the 1/6 seems like a good candidate. You're forcing like a triple trade, then he's only got the leftover 4/4 to do very much with that, so... now, in this case, Orange is also banking on there being no more taunts, so we're looking at, no health gain through Earthen Scales, no way to really get a taunt up. And Primordial Drake with the Wrath should be able to stall at least one extra turn. That's...
Right, he can kill everything except
tough.
a 3/4 and a 1/4. Or I guess a 3/2 and a 1/2, and put a 4/8 taunt in the way. So Neirea should be fairly healthy. And the Paladin doesn't have any burst through taunt, so you should feel okay about it from Neirea's position.
Yeah, I think he'll be okay. Like, he can trade away the 2/3 into the Megasaur after the Drake was played, and then finish off the minions there. I don't think Neirea is gonna die anytime soon unless Orange picks up something like a Tyrion.
Right.
We're talking about some of the crazy top end there left in the deck.
Sunkeeper Tyrion, those sort of things.
Defender into either of these.
Well, I don't have the mana for that yet, but down the road. Well, Wrath for 3 on the 5/4. Innovate Primordial Drake.
Seems about good enough.
Could try and hold back trades to get more value out of his minions instead of value trades on the 2/6, but
kind of like just getting the trades in now and worry about the consequences later. In this spot, there's very little aside from a late game insane draw from Orange that stops you.
Right.
The 1/1s usually end up connecting
board instead of lethal.
Yep.
So Neirea is on the top deck to try and find something that makes it so he doesn't die.
Swipe would help.
There's another gets the job done.
Yeah. Honestly, it's just about... Earthen Scales also helps quite a bit. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Remove all the things, get them off the board to play around poison from the second Megasaur. Orange is going to need either Curator or Tyrion, something big, something that can refill his hand and allow him to just close this game. He has board control, right? The True Silver trades with the 7/3 just fine. So you're going to want to do that because you're not killing him over the top anymore. You're not a burn deck. You're a board control deck. So you take care of the 7/3 and start rebuilding your Murloc board from scratch and hope your opponent draws dead a few times in a row. Helps you land the buffs, and then you close it out.
Yeah, another Earthen Scales. There's a few cards in there that don't do all that much. They don't present any taunts, and Orange has 2 War Leaders left in the deck, and with that wide of a board, that's a big deal. But Curator for Neirea is going to stall Orange once again. Orange just running into counter after counter, and that hungry crowd is going to completely annihilate the last chance at a push. All right, Megasaur into Poisonous. Can we do that? I mean, sure. Do we have it in us?
Maybe. Seers now help. Minions still die.
Yeah, it's looking quite grim.
Completely.
This is looking grim.
Well,
that came really close, though. right?
Oh, it did, yeah. There may have been some. Was there any way Orange maybe could squeeze out a little bit more damage in maybe the Consecrate turn? He's supposed to get in with the True Silver Charge that turn, just because he got at the end of the game, right when things were starting to stabilize for Neirea, Orange had 2 True Silver Charges kind of locked up, which is awkward because that's one of the only combinations like if he has any other 1 card left, then he can use all of his resources in 1 turn. But like a weapon, you have to use it over 2 turns. So in these matchups, sometimes it comes down to, is there any way you can kind of space out where you could get in the weapon? I didn't really see where you could do it cleanly, but maybe it's worth thinking about. Maybe there's an area where you could have taken a suboptimal play that used one of the silver charges. Yeah, just to get it out, right? So.
Yeah. I don't mind. You know, that's a good point. I mean, we had that issue arise earlier when Dr. Hippie was 1-off lethal. He used a dagger charge on the Bluegill Warrior against the Druid instead of just going face with it. And that cost him pretty much the ability to close out the game at the very end. So there's a lot of spots where getting those weapon charges out and used properly for damage to face is what you have to do. And I think this was also one of those for Orange. Maybe just valuing the damage output as opposed to efficiency. Huh.
Right. Like I'd have to look back at it to try and find out spots where he could have maybe used the True Silver. But I think looking at how the game played out, looking at his curve and whatnot, that's the only thing that really could have went wrong there. Is there a spot where you could have taken a suboptimal turn to make sure you could use both True Silver turns before Neirea gets to that turn 8 where he gets Primordial Drake down and starts trying to stabilize?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Maybe then get to swing a bit more damage. And Orange with the Secret Mage against Neirea's Burn Mage, Discover Mage, I guess. Is he running that?
Gunther Mage, yeah. It's a lot of people call it Burn Mage. A lot of people call it Gunther Mage. It's like Freeze Mage with a bunch of minions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it discovers a lot of stuff in the course of a single game.
Mm-hmm. It does.
So matter we're in the trade here, trying to set up the ping on the following turn if a Frostbolt were to come out. Just try to equalize the board states.
As much as possible. The Mana Worm plays around like your opponent playing 2 spells.
Yep.
But plays into your opponent playing 1 spell, because now you can't, have a 1 health Mana Worm that can get bumped up to 2 and trade into their guy. So it kind of denied his ability to Kirin Mage counterspell there from Orange. So although he has a really great opening hand, the bump on the Mana Worm was a bit awkward, I'd say. He could have at least made Neirea have to use the coin. He didn't have the Frostbolt to punish if the Neirea was able to double buff his Mana Worm. So he decided to play the opening extremely safe and got a little bit punished for it.
Neirea here triggering the counterspell with the Ice Barrier. Doesn't seem to be bothered in the least by that. Values the coin a lot more. Getting that turn 6 Firelands Portal can be quite a big deal. And Orange is running Elise the Trailblazer in that deck. That's an interesting choice. I'm guessing it's just in there for the value matchups that go a little bit longer.
Right. Some of the secret mages you'll see play at least the Trailblazer, and some of them Alexstrasza, some of them both of those cards, just so that they can have more of the late game. It's like a Gunther Mage, so it has it's a Gunther Secret Mage combo. It's like a hybrid between the two. It has the ability for those more aggressive early game secret curves, but then still takes the late game and has the burn plan with Alexstrasza and whatnot. So
that's kind of the story of the expansion. Early game mixed with late game.
Brought that deck out a lot in China recently. Haven't seen too many of the North American or European players playing the late game variants of Secret Mage yet, but might be rising in popularity.
Well, Neirea's got a few awkward decisions to make. I mean, he can go for the obvious Fireball on the 5/5 and just keep going and not use the coin yet to guarantee that he can get the Firelands Portal. The issue with that, of course, is that you're surrendering tempo if you end up going for that play. So keeping a 2/3 alive is worth quite a lot more, I think, than getting the Firelands early.
Yeah, he had a decision there. Basically, the deck lists are not revealed, so he doesn't know how much value is in Orange's deck. He doesn't know how late game Orange can go. You see the Elise come out, you get a little bit scared that their deck might be able to go super late and outvalue your deck. But before the Elise came out, Neirea's play was just obviously going to be Fireball whatever guy you play, coin Frostbolt. I want to remove all your minions and then outvalue you at the end of the day. And now he thinks, or the hesitation what there was, maybe I can't outvalue you, you have Elise. But the conclusion he came to when the rope finally hit was, I'm going to stay true to my game plan, I'm going to try and remove all of your minions and say my deck has better late game than your deck, so when things come down at the end, I'm going to win. and he's trying to stay true to that game plan.
Well, Orange definitely with that double counterspell put a wrench in Nerea's ability to remove the board, because the point of Mage, of course, is in these matchups where you're both trying to divide for the mana worms and the Archaeologist to stick around, it really comes down to removal, being able to connect. And when double counterspell goes one way and not the other person's, it's usually pretty one-sided. That's not quite the 5-drop you were looking for.
No.
If you're Orange, though. Oh, well, neither is this.
Yeah.
At least it's stealthed, I guess.
Getting a particularly good 5-drop. And Orange on that turn had the decision of if he wanted to Arcane Intellect and play a value game, saving the Firelands Portal to line up with one of his opponent's minions, or if he wanted to try and take a tempo play, just Firelands Portal face, try and close the game out. And he values trying to close the game out faster rather than playing for value, so he believes his deck, even with Elise, still loses in the late game against Neirea's, and he wants to try and use this window of opportunity that he's generated with the tempo to try and kill him as fast as possible.
Well, no Murlocs in that deck, that's for sure. So that Finch is going to just be a trading tool to use with a ping, potentially, if that's where he wants to go. Either way, there's the possibility of the Medivh's Valet coming out from either side to help flesh out the removal turns that are coming up. Neirea's got decent plays.
Yeah, values killing the Mana Worm over the Archaeologist because it only takes one spell to make the stats equal, so it just makes sense to kill that one.
Alright, now the Ice Block is set up. Yeah, it is the Ice Block. Both players will have an Ice Block set up, with Orange having a crazy health lead. So technically that favors him, in the long term. But there's also a second Ice Block baseline in Neirea's deck, I believe, which is not necessarily the case in Orange's list. We've seen a lot of Secret Mages simply not put Ice Block or just put a single copy of it and not go for the 2 of, which means that when it comes to, fighting off in the mirror match Ice Block wars, Neirea has the edge there. So it's going to come down to who finds the burn first, if the Alexstrasza can stall a little bit longer, and Orange can keep himself alive.
Yeah, oftentimes Mage is a lot better at being aggressive than it is at being defensive. So
yeah,
the Mage mirrors tend to favor the more aggressive lists and whoever's able to get more chip damage in earlier. And I've never seen a board this good for Greater Arcane Missiles in my lifetime playing.
In my
Hearthstone.
entire life, yeah. That's a fair point. Oh, how clunky is this?
It's very clunky, but Orange's deck runs Pyroblast a lot of the time, so even if Alex comes for the self-heal, it should be fine. You don't want to ping the face because you want to be able to Fireball then ping.
Yep.
So that's why he is pinging the Murloc here. You don't want to pop them at 6 because that's super awkward. So 7 is a better life total for them to be at for you than 6 is.
And they're evaluating if there's ever a world in which he goes insane and Alexstrasza is the enemy's face, but the only time where that's going to be worth it is when you have follow-up burn, and he's got no fireballs left in the deck baseline, barring Primordial Glyphs. So he's looking at his removal and thinking, when do I use these, ever? Do I value this 2-2? Is that going to be the 2-2 that wins me the game if it stays alive?
Oh, so the 8-8 is a pretty good burn spell.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if Orange doesn't have a way to react to the Alex, Orange currently doesn't have a secret up, so Neirea is not afraid of Ice Block at the moment. Jamming that Alexstrasza to the face sets up lethal on a lot of draws.
Well, there's no more fireballs, right? So you're looking at Firelands Portal and maybe a single copy of Pyro. So there's like 3 draws and maybe the glyphs. So you're looking at like 5 outs with some of them being conditional. I don't know if I'm all... I would much rather just get the chip damage in from this Finja and rely on Alexstrasza to stay defensive. Because Orange at some point is definitely going to go all in on the burn. And you should just be able to win the game on the back of the 8-8, whether it sets up a 2-turn or 3-turn lethal.
That's the hope. He could have tried to ping his own face there to try and trade Finja, ping your own face, play around Fireball. But opts not to. Yeah. The Oskaka versus Tice play.
The world champion play.
Right. He's getting popped at 1. He would have been popped at 2 if he had pinged himself. So then he wouldn't have had to Alexstrasza. He could then clear the minion and force Orange to invest another burn spell and then Alexstrasza himself. So dealing 1 damage to himself there could have potentially healed him for, 3 to 6. It's kind of weird, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, you wouldn't think of it that way, but it is true. In that spot, it did matter. You end up with 2 health instead of 1, so suddenly that Ice Block is live.
Yeah. Probably gonna Alex himself. He's afraid of the secret. Secret came out. We know it's Iceblock. He doesn't know that. Could be Mirror Entity, and he could lose the game.
I think he's looking at this like as whether or not he values the second Ice Block now, because he wants to get rid of that 2-3, as well. But I think it's always just better to get the 8-8 out, as you said, to set up the counter lethal at some point. Otherwise, you're just extending the game infinitely to where the aggressive mage gets the edge in the end. That's not where you want to take this game. Primordial Glyph here could get Pyroblast, of course, at the top end of the results. It's a playable card right off of it. Polymorphs, also a possibility for the Alexstrasza. There's a lot that could get in there and just close out the game. Man. Well, that Babbling Book could do some work. You have got to be kidding me. Should have played around that, Neirea.
It's just so hard to try and outvalue a mage that's trying to kill you. Mage's defense nowhere near as strong as its offense. But he's starting to get there.
Yeah, he's almost on the point of stabilization, but he needs a counter push, though, right? Which is the issue. Right. He's got very little left. And Goro back off the draw for orange. More resources being sprinkled in that hand. He's going to find himself more stuff to do. Double Molten Blade. I think we're going to wait for that one. I mean...
Yeah, that's a lot of damage.
That's a Babbling Book coming up, right? Oh, he's only running the one? Okay. One book.
Babbling Book, 2 worms, yeah.
Looks like that's... that was his decision. Do you usually see 2 books? I tend to see 2 books when I see 1. I don't know if that's the trend. But...
Yeah, 2 books has been standard for a really long time, or no books. The 1 book started coming in actually Pavel. He was running only 1 Babbling Book so that he could squeeze in the 2 Sorcerer's Apprentices.
Fair enough. I mean, that's a much more powerful card in and of itself.
Right, but it's kind of funny because you're like, who's the guy that would cut Babbling Book? And you'd never think Pavel, but he's the guy that was doing it. Not both of them, just one. He still keeps 1 in there. Got to do that.
So he respected that Mana Worm a lot. Double Tentacles for arms.
Weapons.
Wait. Are we witnessing a set rotation on the Molten Blades? Do they always rotate at the same time? With the same card?
I do not believe that they do.
Well, what were the odds then? I don't even want to calculate that, but the odds of him getting 2 Molten Blades into 2 Tentacles for arms. Yeah, that's a very specific outcome.
There's only like 20 or so weapons, right? It's not that crazy. Ooh, that's not a good minion to get. Deals 5 damage to yourself as well. It's one of the better low roll, or one of the biggest low rolls you could possibly get off Firelion's Portal.
Well, let's see if Neirea can get himself a Doom Guard here, or well, there you go. Just counter it with a Corrupted Heal Bot. What's up with these minions? Are they just memeing us? Oh, you're correct. They actually don't roll at the same time. We just got a fortunate sequencing.
Yeah, you're gonna want to Doom Hammer your opponent in the face. You can pop him at 1 here.
I mean, seems good.
Hit with the Doom Hammer, Fireball, hit with the Doom Hammer again.
Let's not Spirit Echo.
Alexstrasza's gone.
Neirea looking at this, dismayed a little bit. He's like, yeah, that's another damage source. Could pick up a Babbling Book save, but it's not going to last long, and the Ooze is going to buy him some armor. What is this? What is this sorcery? So he's dead next turn, right?
Sometimes. Depends what the weapon rolls.
Yeah, depends what. So it would have to be Lies Justice for him not to die, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Unless it can it roll Molten Blade? I don't know if Molten Blade can roll Molten Blade.
Oh, that's an interesting question.
There's like Spirit Claws and Light's Justice that don't kill him. Everything else killed him.
Yeah.
It only rolls playable weapons, so it doesn't roll like the Rusty Hook or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's typically how Mage Mirrors go. The one that is more aggressive most always wins, because it's just so hard to defend against a mage forever. Like, outvaluing something forever and hoping it runs out of steam can work a lot of the time against other classes, and that's what the Gunther Mage often tries to do. But when you try and do it against Mage, it almost never works because they just always find a way to get there with fireballs, frostbolts, just so much damage, pyroblast. So it's very difficult to stop them.
Yeah, it's really just an issue of aggro decks versus, you know, the control deck, usually that polarization where you have one deck trying to take its time and generate value. And I don't think there's a single deck that generates or tries to generate more value over the course of an entire game than Gunther Mage. I feel like that's the deck that just tries to wait the longest to do its own thing. And if you just crank up the aggression, you basically stall them and prevent them from doing anything. But that double War Leader opener from Orange...
Yeah, you're going to want to play the War Leader. Put out as much pressure as possible, in my opinion. But he wants to put out
the Seer.
The
Okay.
Seer. It goes a lot slower with the Seer. And I guess it protects better against South Sea deckhand.
South Sea, yeah. The 2 damage ping being a little bit of a worry. In the back of your mind, I could see why that's relevant. Because you're pushing the most damage too by generating 2 non-War Leader Murlocs for your double War Leader turn, but... Oh, well, never mind. We're just gonna play all the shards, complete the quest, and get it done on curve.
This is a crazy hand for both of these decks.
That is nuts. I can't even.
Yeah, Shadow Step it and play it again. Freeze everything.
He can't even True Silver. His face is frozen. Although, do you just keep it?
He's thinking about holding it, yeah, so that he can freeze 2 minions next turn while completing the quest, which I like.
But the 5/5, you know, getting the extra body on the board gives you a 5/5 right away.
He plays it now and then freezes the face. Then next turn he can play 2 5/5s. If he does it this way, he gets to freeze 2 minions and have 1 5/5 with charge. The other 5/5 will not be able to attack. And after seeing only 1 Shadow Step go out, I don't think Orange is going to expect the quest is going to be complete. He may trade still with the War Leader, but I think it's unlikely.
Yeah, I think you're right. The surprise factor is going to kick in, and
actually,
when you have the health buff, you can still make that trade easily. It's not that big.
Your War Leader dies now to the dagger.
That prep is going to come in handy to get those extra minions on the board.
The quest rogue nuts, man. I mean, Orange has like the Murloc Paladin nuts. One of the better, or if not, one of the like super good hands you could possibly get from aggro Murloc Paladin up against one of the best hands you can get from Quest Rogue. I think Quest
against aggro specifically, I mean, the fact that he's getting 4 shards against, in a situation where there's no way he's able to stall this unless he picks up double step, because getting an extra Brewmaster here or a Gaddison Ferryman really didn't cut it. It wasn't enough counter pressure to really make it happen, but in this case, 4 Glacial Shards with the quest on curve, has left over 2 mana to use the boar and trade, and sets up an extra little Flame Elemental. That is insane.
Right, and Orange doesn't really have a play for next turn. It's only on 5 mana, right?
Yep, not enough mana to play the Spiker Steed, so these 5/5s are going to get to do what they want with him.
Ouch.
And now... There's what? True Silver. Oh, I was going to say True Silver maybe helps a bit over 2 to 3 turns because you're able to, with the Spiker Steed, probably clean up those 5/5s that are here, but you're taking a substantial amount of damage in the process. Yikes. We respect the Charger. You probably have to. I mean, that's...
They have no cards in hand. Can you kill him fast enough is the real question. You probably want to take the 2/3 into the 5/1 so that it doesn't accumulate extra value on your minions. You want to make him have to trade a full 5/5 into your 6/4. But if Neirea draws dead, you could maybe still just win. The awkward part is your entire hand says control. You got Spike
You're not looking to close out the game next turn. Like your board says, we can just go in. Then you look at those 5/5s and you're just forced to slow down. Yeah, feels
that's a good one. That's 2 5/5s. One of them even having taunt to kind of remove the aggressive plan from Orange, and all of the trades available means Spike Ridge Steed is not going to be able to come out on turn 6. And you have to expect Neirea can just easily win from this position.
After this opener, Orange is just looking at a board that's gonna just about kill him, and the Nuts opener on the Murloc side does not beat the Nuts on the Rogue side.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that Orange got kind of screwed that game. His lineup is targeting Quest Rogue, and this is 2 series in a row where Quest Rogue on its first try got to win very easily. And it's not really the fault of his lineup. I mean, you saw his hand there was fantastic. Maybe it's a flaw in the strategy. Maybe targeting Quest Rogue isn't great.
Maybe Quest Rogue just doesn't get targeted. Maybe just doesn't. You can try as much as you want. It's gonna find those openers. I feel like the deck is also getting refined more and more, like the list of acceptable minions to run in it. And this Glacial Shard list has been doing a ton of work for people expecting to be targeted by other players. Just gets them to keep the tempo up. It's a pretty big deal. Neirea now will go back to the Mage that he lost with. Give it another shot against the Murloc Paladin. Okay, I'm gonna have to start cleaning up really early.
Yeah, Quen's Frostbolt to try and play around Rockpool Hunter. Archaeologist or Medivh's Valet coming out. If Rockpool Hunter lands in the Murloc, it buffs it to a 3/3, allowing Orange to value trade. And now the awkward turns begin. Now you're really not afraid of any of the buffers landing on this because you'll still be able to trade into it. So I would have liked to see him just play a minion there.
Yeah, I would have liked to see the 2/3. I guess I mean, you don't want to lose the body, but at the end of the day, you're going to lose it no matter what. Maybe it's just more valuable for him to get the ping out. I'm not sure. Is there a card like, I guess the Cold Light Seer sets up a 2/3 and it doesn't kill the enemy's 2/3, so suddenly it's a little clunky because you end up having to expend pings into your turn 3 where you have nothing else to do. So I can see why he's opting for this.
His game plan seems to be kill everything and run his opponent out of resources. So he's trying to do that. And Livier picks up some decent value here. Kings picks up some decent value as well. Which one did you put Kings on?
Probably the 1/1 to make it a 5/5, because then you actually negate the opponent's ability to really deal with your War Leader if they Frostbolt this little minion. Whereas if you Kings the other one, then they don't Frostbolt it ever, and so the Frostbolt's still alive for the kill on the War Leader. I like this a lot.
Yeah, it works better around the mana of your opponent, right? On this turn, Neirea would prefer to Fireball rather than Frostbolt ping, so distributing the stats like this makes that awkward.
Here we go. Start pulling the secrets out of the deck. Double Ice Block already in hand for Neirea. He's probably going to play for tempo with that Medivh's Valet. As with the Volcanic Potion, he can just finish off the job.
The idea here is he wants to set up a clear after the War Leader comes down, right? War Leader comes down, Orange gets 2 very tempting value trades, takes the value trades, you can Volcanic Potion to kill everything.
You probably push the 7 anyway, right?
Yeah, you push 7 to face. 7's a big number. But, so yeah, now Neirea trades 2/3 into 4/4 Volcanic Potion. Most of the board's gone.
Yeah, seems pretty good. Orange is also going into his turn 6 with a Spiker Steed, which is a worry, of course, for Neirea because he's got no answer to it. And again, it seems like it's the battle of the deck that's trying to extract value out of everything versus the battle of the deck that's it gets just enough value out of every card it plays to be a problem. And he's going to opt to remove the most damage off the board and set up a 2-turn ping on this, but that Spiker Steed is not going to stop him from...
He needs a polymorph.
That happened. Yeah, polymorph, fireball ping. I mean...
A lot of players not running polymorph in the Gunther Mage currently.
He is, I think. We saw one earlier with the Alex Straza. I think the fireball got counterspell, and then he got a poly later on the 2/3 minion, so... He definitely runs a single copy of it, at least.
Ooh, full Song Stealer. Nice little silence for the upcoming turn. Chooses to set the ice block rather than drawing with the Arcane Intellect because his next turn's kind of mapped out. No matter what he draws, he's probably playing Cabal Song Stealer. So he values just getting the secret out, which will make the second Medivh's Valet live. But this kind of tells me he also wants to try and play Medivh Guardian on 8.
Yeah, ideally you want to get it out since you're going for resource generation, generally speaking. The earlier the better. Cabal Song Stealer is kind of a welcome side here, as he had really no answer to that War Leader without the polymorph to 1-up in the deck. However, he's liable to get popped now, right? So he's got the second ice block, but beyond that, he does need to find a way to get himself back up in health total, because Orange is just going to be able to chip away at him after the first ice block is popped and eventually just get the second one off. That's going to mean that Neirea will have no more lifelines.
Mm-hmm. It's going to have to, like, play the Gluttonous Ooze to remove the True Silver, set up another ice block, and hopefully draw into Alexstrasza.
No, we're pretty much down to that Gluttonous Ooze generating armor through True Silver Champion for the immediate health gain, and it's really Alex with the card draw that has to be reached, so... Orange is just going to go wide and say, you know what, if you've got yourself a Flame Strike, I will gift it to you. I can't really stop it from generating value anyway. And that's going to be a very welcome Flame Strike for Neirea if he wants to take it. He's going to have to wait a few turns, yeah. He's going to have to wait, like, to get himself value. Let's start with the Ooze. Probably the Ooze.
I mean, if he had a Frost Nova, fantastic, but how are we setting up this Flame Strike without dying?
Yeah, we're looking at, like, the Ooze for armor gain, so... Is there a world where you go Fireball, Ice Block, Trade? No.
Fireball, Ice Block, Trade could make something happen if you expect your opponent to hold the weapon, right? And then they pop you again, and then you try and set up for some sort of Ooze plus something next turn. Because right now, if you take the armor gain right now, the issue is he's just going to shred it all. So it's not helping you any. But you're always afraid that Orange could play around that Ooze and just make sure he uses the weapon.
Well, how about you just go Gluttonous Ooze Fireball, right? Like, you just Ooze and then Fireball the 4/6, you get 2 trades, and then you're not dead to the board. And I think that's the safest line of play, because then you can set up the Ice Block more likely than not, unless they pick up some more damage off the top. In this case, the Gentle Megastore can do it. I mean, Wind Fury or +3 attack both are, you know, just closing out the game here. And True Silver number 2 will simply close out the series. Not the series, but the game in favor of Orange. That was a fortunate draw.
You got there. Makes up for the Quest Road game, right? So it's not bad.
Yeah, he got robbed, man. That game just looked like it was his right off the bat based on the hand and the opener. And then Orange just got torn apart by Glacial Shard.
Yeah. So now we have Pirate Warrior versus Gunther Mage. This matchup often feels very 50-50. A lot of the time, Gunther Mage gets both ice blocks because of how powerful Arcanologist is. And so they can stall the game down to like turn 10 a lot of the time and set up these weird situations where they can actually race you back because you run out of minions and so you can't remove theirs and they push damage every turn.
Yeah, they kind of chip at you with those 2 attack guys and eventually you just die off to them. But, beautiful scenario. That Nazad's first mate coming in handy.
Yeah, it's really good. You can hold the swing if you want and still be able to swing 3 times before Reaper. But he chooses just to dunk it right now. Wants to just super efficient with his damage. There's usually a limited window to get in all your damage. You have to pop their ice block in time.
It's a pretty tough matchup for the Warrior if it goes long enough, right? Like, that's what the Gunther Mage is trying to do the most, is just buy all the time in the world, and then eventually you can't catch up, and you just get roadblocked by, well, quite literally ice blocks, which is actually why he's opting simply not to trade with the minions on the board. Will offer the 3/3 up for grabs to that Mana Worm after a double buff if 2 spells are played. So, interesting decision there.
This Arcane Explosion. Oh my god, the blowout.
That's
the punish.
Yep. That just hurts. Well, we've got weapons for days, and the Mage just doesn't interact with weapons. So for what it's worth, we have damage. We're just looking for something for the Mage to slow down, which, you know, this 3/3 is cute at doing, but...
He's going to play the Warx this turn, look to try and get in 2 swings before Reaper turn. Use his charges more efficiently. Throws away the 1 damage of the hook, but it's pretty irrelevant. Alright. Courier heals him for 3 a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's actually just going to get dealt with some overkill from the enemy side with the Fire War Axe also dealing 3 damage, so there's going to be 1 wasted damage. That's a good point.
It just seems like you want to be developing minions into your your opponent's board because they don't have very much stuff yet. You don't have any good way to remove it. Later on, you can always Ice Barrier when you're a bit lower and it's a more desperate situation.
Valkyrie is also giving you the flexibility of finding extra healing if you feel like that's necessary. There's a lot of healing in the 3 classes you're looking at. If you're not looking for burn specifically, just the ability to find extra stalling tools is a big deal.
Yeah, he's going to take the healing there. Healing and AoE. Pretty sick.
Oof, that draw from Orange. That Kor'kron Elite has got to be one of the better draws in the deck. I guess Frothing comes close enough. With the Worgen Infiltrator being developed, yeah.
Frothing would have been sick, but Kor'kron's not bad. Question is, do you trade with this 3/3 or not? I would say no, but someone
you're
could
worried
sway me.
Frostbolt ping, I guess, if you're worried. But you've got the Reaper. I'm thinking just jamming.
Right.
Like,
Frostbolt ping, if they do this, you don't care. If they're ever pinging, it's such an inefficient use of their mana that you don't mind that much. It does get a little bit punished by the Volcanic Potion here, but you would be trading 3 damage to protect 3 damage if you used your War Axe swing to protect the minion.
Yeah, so in the end, it just ends up being either equal or even. It doesn't accomplish all that much overall. So you're just forcing the Mage to use reactive cards in that spot, and there is almost lethal on Orange's side. Unfortunately, the Ice Block and Ice Barrier are there to stall, and there's no damage from hand for Orange at this point in the game with the mana that he's got that can deal 8 from hand without interacting with the Ice Barrier. So still a bit of time.
Wow.
On Neirea's side.
Could have held back the deckhand to try and get Cultist if he wanted.
That's a good point. But if you're forcing a ping, the Mage's turn gets really awkward.
Yeah,
Because there's no Blizzard. I haven't seen a Blizzard in Neirea's deck yet, right? It was in the initial list from Cy Gunther's, but because of one of, and then I think people started cutting it.
Ah, the Meteor placement.
What is Meteor? And what is Cone of Cold?
The Worgen should be in the middle. Yeah, Meteor and Cone of Cold. And Glyph to find them as well. This is potentially a moment to get punished.
If Neirea picks up the Primordial Glyph, we could see.
He just runs Meteor. I think we've seen that already. So all he needs to do is draw the Meteor that's in his stack. And he's going to swing with the weapon. He didn't hold back the Pirate, so finding the upgrade effect isn't nearly as likely. He has 2 upgrades in his deck that he could hit. He has 1 Reaper, 1 War Axe left, so it's kind of sketchy to swing there. I would have liked to see him hold back the weapon swing and hold back the deckhand this turn, allowing him to get the Cultist or both upgrades to have enough damage to make it. But this plays around like Frostbolt and the Ooze a little bit better.
Yeah, especially the Ooze, I think, is the biggest worry in the back of his mind, because 5 armor is kind of hard to recover when you're losing the weapon that is supposed to give it to you. So I think the Ooze is really the thing he's playing around the most here. But
yeah, that's what's on his mind. That's why every turn he's just been swinging for the fences. He doesn't care about upgrade effects. He's just too worried about Neirea finding the gluttonous Ooze.
Neirea now with the Holy Nova can remove some damage, but then he's exposing himself to pretty much everything that deals damage in that deck. Heroic Strike, Moral Strike, Reaper, Fire War Axe #2. There's just a ton of stuff in Orange's deck that kills him. So we could maybe see a slower line of play, but he needs to find second block to make it remotely close to working. So that seems it's just about as good as Holy Nova in that spot.
2 Heroic Strikes, a Mortal Strike, a Reaper.
5 cards, basically. It's
like 5 or 6 cards to kill him from this position, depending on how many Mortal Strikes you run. A lot of players don't run 2 anymore.
Yeah. Looks like Neirea is going to live to see another day, but how many days is the question.
And how fast can he mount an offense?
I think with Alex Straza in the deck and the second Ice Block, you know, if he's dodged one lethal draw, then he can just find himself a little bit more So, like, the Ooze would help, the Alexstrasza would help, assuming weapons are what ends up killing you and not Moral Strike or Heroic Strike. Yeah, there's a little bit left there in Neirea's deck that he can dig through.
Right. So he's got two options. Option one is like Firelance Portalist, so you can start mounting pressure. It's three options. Option three, Holy Nova Ping to try and get himself out of range of all the one-outers from Orange.
Now he's dead to Fire War Axe Southsea, but that's very specific, so usually not too worried about those highly specific scenarios. And Orange is going to get the damage in with the upgrade. Start swinging away at Nerea's health total.
He should be able to double block into Alex pretty consistently now with the amount of draw in his hand.
I think so too.
Man, we're sick pickup to be able to play with the Secret and the Arcane Analog.
Yeah. The only better thing might have been like an Arcanologist number 2 to guarantee the ice blocks picked up. Otherwise, getting that 3/3 out there is fantastic. And Heroic Strike can help ping the Mage at 1 here if you just use the Southsea deckhand first.
Deckhand first, pop him at 1.
2. Well, at 2.
That is 2, yeah. At 2 is that better than popping him at 4?
In this deck, it gives your Fire War Axe an extra chance to swing, but since you've got the Southsea anyway, it doesn't really matter much.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I think the Fire War Axe changes, like, slightly. But at the end of the day, if you're holding the deckhand, it just averages out to the same thing.
All of the same outs are lethal right now, yes. So,
yep.
It doesn't matter. It's better to hold the deckhand because now you have more cards.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And that's what Neirea wanted to see.
The consistency of finding the double ice block in this deck gives the Mage so much time.
5/3 1-drop. Here we go. And now, if Nerea's Ice Block is not popped this turn, he's just gonna go ahead and, okay, that's a pop. It's a pretty feel-bad pop, but it's a pop.
You do it.
You just have no choice. Like, it's not as though you're looking at 1,000 options that could get you out of this. It's tough enough already to begin with to have to fight off through 2 ice blocks. If you're trying to just hold damage to beat a potential post-Alexstrasza Mage, I mean, you're looking at never, ever killing your opponent.
He's going to try and pop him at 1 as well. Looks like.
Yep. So that gives him the other upgrade as an out in Zos first mate number 2. He's got the, well, pretty much everything in the deck, basically.
Adds upgrade and his Zos first mate as outs, but removes second deckhand as an out. So net gain of 1 additional out by sequencing it this way.
And the Alex comes out, so there's just nothing in Orange's deck that can help. Whether we're talking about Arcanite Reaper and whatnot, it just doesn't matter. That's just a 5 damage. I mean, he could play to Arcanite Reaper out, like outs, right? Does that even help ever?
If you hit Reaper this turn, 5, you got an out.
Yeah, 5/5 into what?
Hit Reaper twice and then Mortal Strike him for 6.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's optimistic, but sure, that can work. That's right. That's correct. Getting the 6 damage from Mortal Strike was the key there to dealing 15 over a few turns. Well, Neirea is going to take it 3-2 over Orange at the end of the day, and that was again Orange getting.
He got
kind of, I want to say, unfortunate with his targeting of, Quest Rogue. It seems like his lineup is built to fight off against that one deck. And every single time he's had the matchup, the hand looks okay, and then just everything falls apart. And that was one of the sickest Murloc openers I've seen in a long time. But it was the best possible counter hand from the Quest Rogue side, and that just shut down Orange completely. So
that's one of the potential issues with targeting Quest Rogue is Quest Rogue can do some broken stuff, man. So when your whole lineup strategy, or at least not maybe the whole lineup, because obviously he's just bringing aggro decks that are pretty good against a couple of things. But one of the main things that they're really good against is Quest Rogue. And if you try and focus too much on Quest Rogue, it can cause problems because that deck can just win against anything.
Looks like it's good against control. It's good against mid-range. It does okay against aggro when it's played perfectly and gets the right draws. It's not like a 80-20 thing. I thought initially aggro would be dominant enough that Quest Rogue would be pushed out, but it looks like they're still sticking around regardless over time. And now We are onwards to the last match of the day, the last best of 5. We will not be taking a break between this match and the next one. We're going to be jumping right into the last match since the games have been going pretty quickly today, right? We've got Zale and Stan Sivka coming up. We've seen Stan Sivka play a little bit earlier. Plays a big word because he got about 5 minutes of screen time. Got completely demolished by RDU.
He got in 14 turns, and I think he passed 5 of those turns without playing a card.
Yeah, thanks, Purify Priest. You disappointed right there. That is not what I expected out of my pet deck. That's what I wanted out of this this expansion.
It's one of Soleil's favorite decks, too. He always tries to tell me how good Purify Priest is. And I always hit him in the face with a Reaper, so it goes really well in our practice sessions for me.
Seems about right. Zale is also going to be, playing against Stansivka with probably, very likely an aggro lineup. So you mentioned how Reaper just takes a dump on Purify Priest. We might just see some of that happen again. Stansivka got blown out by RDU's highly aggressive lineup. You think Zale is going to do the same thing?
Zale, we've already seen him play once. He's playing a very highly aggressive lineup. I practiced with him, so I know his line ins and outs. He's a player that likes taking all of his time. So he's fun to commentate because he gives you a ton of time to explain through his thought process. So even though he's playing a quote-unquote brainless aggro decks, I tend to think aggro decks are some of the harder decks to play 100% optimally because you have to kind of factor in what cards are in your opponent's deck based on how you develop your board and determine what the optimal line is. And one little mistake and you just lose the game. So